What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt practice report. We just met with another group of four Pitt incoming transfers. We pretty robust group of transfers coming into this year, in this year to Pitt as a whole. And we got to meet with another group just like we did last year. Met with former Oregon State tight end Jake Overman, former Yukon long snapper, and I apologize if I'm butchering this name. I'm still learning it. Got to pronounce from you once, but Nilaya Yayula, Upadhyayula. I believe I got that right. As well as a former Ohio linebacker Keye Thompson and former Alabama quarterback Eli Holstein. Holstein, obviously, the headliner of that group. The quarterback is always stealing the show every time one of them steps into the spotlight. So we're going to start there because I was really fascinated by our interview with him, and just want to give some kind of first impressions of what we got from Holstein's first meeting with us as local media and his first kind of introduction to Pittsburgh. Interesting kid. I think pretty humble. Knows his kind of place on the depth chart right now. Um, he knows he's behind some guys like Christian Veyer and Nate Yarnell. Obviously, Yarnell was kind of pegged as the QB1 going into spring ball. You have to assume that Vayer's his backup as kind of QB2. But two guys with starting experience that unquestionably will be kind of leading that room. You can kind of go back and forth on Holstein versus Ty Diefenbach and Julian Duggar, probably the last of that group. Panthers have five scholarship quarterbacks right now. Duggar just coming in as a freshman in this new recruiting class, and everyone else has at least a year of experience at college practices. Diefenbach and Holstein haven't played in any games yet, but they've been around a college program for a while, so you can kind of sort it into tiers. I mean, Yarnell, obviously the top dog. You got Veyer there, who's kind of a 1B, I would have to assume. And then you've got Holstein and Diefenbach on another tier, and Duggar on kind of the lowest rung. But Holstein knew that. I asked him, what's kind of your role right now? Obviously, a talented guy looking for a fresh start, like he said, a bigger opportunity or a more clear opportunity. Um, but I think he understands that there are guys ahead of him. There are guys who have been in this system for longer, who have earned their reps ahead of him. So he told me, just I'm trying to learn as much as possible. I'm trying to learn the offense, which everyone is going to have to do. He's trying to learn how things are done at Pitt, and just figure out some things in his own game. He knows he's not a perfect player. Got some stuff he's got to work on. So kind of just taking it one day at a time, learning the offense in spring ball, seeing how spring ball goes, just from a mechanical standpoint, a performance standpoint. See how he fits in with this offense, and kind of take it from there. Um, I think it's easy to see a guy could come in from Alabama, have a bit of a big head coming in from a program like that to a place like Pitt. But it doesn't seem like Holstein has any preconceived notions about the situation he's walking into or expects anything. I think he's taking it just as slow as his coaches are probably going to as well. He also said that the scheme really excites him, and we'll talk a little bit more about this because Overman hinted at some of this as well. But the Holstein feels like this offense is going to fit him really well with Cade Bell, a new offensive coordinator in place. He was really excited about first of all the chance to throw the ball over the field, and we'll get into that a little bit more with Overman, where we can tie this all together. But Holstein said that he kind of comes from a really balanced offensive background, both at his high school, Zachary High School in Louisiana, and at Alabama. And this will be a little bit more pass heavy, which is something that he'll have to get used to. But another thing that Cade Bell told him was he's going to have the chance to run the ball a lot. And that really excites Holstein. Holstein is a pretty big dude. He's 6'4", 237 pounds, not far off from the measurements that his I'll call him his NFL idol. I don't know if he would particularly enjoy that, but the player he models himself after kind of at the NFL level is Josh Allen, who is 6'5" and 237. So Holstein really looks up to Allen. He loves the way that he makes big plays, not just with his arm, but particularly with his legs. And Holstein tried to kind of replicate that in his high school game. He ran for about 1,300 yards and 30 touchdowns as a high school starter over 3 years. It's an impressive resume. It's impressive tape. And, you kind of look at him and you don't realize how big of a dude he is sitting a few rows back in the team meeting room when we were doing interviews. But Holstein's clearly got some meat on his bones. He's aggressive and fearless. He likes to kind of live up to that Josh Allen comparison. And I think he's certainly going to get the chance to. Holstein said he's already had conversations with Cade Bell where Bell is telling him, you're going to have the chance to run. Don't just sit back there and be a statue. If you don't have something that you like, feel free to take off and run. And I think Holstein's really going to run with that opportunity. And he's really going to, he at least has told us now that he really appreciates being able to be a part of an offense like that where he has that kind of freedom. Tying that into Overman as well. Overman, who comes from Oregon State, he is, I believe, a fifth-year senior. Um, and he said he was in more of a blocking role at Oregon State. He only caught, I believe, 8 passes over his entire career, if not just his senior year. Either way, just not a huge part of the passing offense for the Beavers, which was already a scheme that leaned on their run game for the most part as well. But Overman said part of what drew him to Pitt was the opportunity to make some plays in the passing game. He knows that Gavin Bartholomew's there, Carter Johnson's coming back, but he sees an opportunity for himself to make some splash in the passing game. It's something that Holstein alluded to as well, that Holstein said he in high school was really only throwing it 20 or 25 times a game at most. I believe the most he said in his career was 30 times he passed in a game. This is going to be different. 30 to 35 passes a game is going to be the norm for this Pitt offense, if not more. So Overman sees an opportunity there. I'm sure there will be more opportunities for Nate Yarnell and Christian Bayer. I'm sure that gets their eyes wide as well to make some plays in the passing game. Same thing for just about everyone in this offense, from Kanate Mumpfield to Gavin Bartholomew, Dejon Reynolds, and Kenny Johnson. And then I think, you've also, from what I remember looking at some of the film of Western Carolina, some of their highlights, the running backs get really involved in the passing game as well. So you see an opportunity for Rodney Hammond, who I think is a pretty decent pass catcher out of the backfield. So just good stuff to look forward to. I mean, just a different kind of attack. I mean, I know last year we made a lot of Rodney Hammond not getting his touches and not being able to run the ball, but I think this is just a different situation where they're still going to be able to get the ball in the hands of playmakers, especially those running backs, and see what they can do in space, and see what they can do in an up tempo offense that still kind of prides itself on being tough running the ball, but is going to spread it around quite a bit. So kind of a different look I think you can anticipate from the Panthers on offense this year. Another thing I want to touch on real quickly was just how complimentary guys were of the culture. Overman said that, but also, Nilay Upadhyayula, excuse me. He did tell us he goes by the nickname Upa, that was given to him in high school. So I'm going to kind of use that to refer to him as from here on out. But Upa, kind of co-signed this as well. What Overman said about the culture. There's a strong desire to win, to get back to where this program was, 2 years ago and the year before that, and even before that, just to not go through another 3-9 season again is. You can feel it in the air. These guys are saying, and they're really highly complimentary of a culture that wants to win, but a culture that is also welcoming and encourages even the new guys to really get their hands dirty and be a part of that culture and a part of winning as well. Upa gave perhaps the most fascinating interview that I've ever heard from a long snapper. It was the most fascinating interview that I've heard in a long time in that facility. He's just seems like an interesting person, and I think especially when a long snapper gives you a bunch of material to work with, or just makes your ears perk up. You notice it because it's not very often that those guys are comfortable being in the spotlight, but you could feel how easily he took questions, how easily he stood at that podium and spoke publicly. It's not very common, and I was just interested by his story. He's lived in 5 different states. He's getting his MBA at Pitt. Talked about um, how he's worked at a bank before. He's following his brother's footsteps, who works in finance in New York City. When he was at UConn, he worked at UBS. He worked at a bank in Connecticut in between kind of his football hours. He's told us working at that bank was, quote, the best and worst thing for my football career, because he learned you can make millions of dollars not running down the field and getting smacked, which I thought was pretty funny. Just a guy with a good sense of humor, a good head on his shoulders, and a good understanding of why he's using football. He enjoys playing football. He wants to be really good at it, but he also, knows there's a life after football. And I would just encourage you to check out everything this guy had to say. He has a connection with Cal Adamitis as well, a former Pitt long snapper who spent some time around the facility. It's just really interesting, and I would encourage you to check it out. It's posted on the full interview is posted on our YouTube, so you can see everything that he had to say and just take in that kind of really interesting conversation. I thought for yourself, I think it's definitely worth your time. It's not very long. I believe not even 10 minutes. So. Um, and then I want to kind of close this video talking about Keye Thompson, the former Ohio linebacker, seventh year senior, an experienced guy. I think when he signed with the Panthers, and even when he kind of got on their radar as a guy who was getting offered, he seemed like a plug and play guy, a guy who was immediately going to step in, and the Panthers were going to expect to play a bunch of snaps, play a major role. I don't think the Panthers would have recruited him if they were I don't wanna say confident because I believe they're confident in, a bunch of the young guys that they have, like Braylon Lovelace, Jordan Bass, and, I am forgetting Kyle Lewis, and then I think there's one more that I'm forgetting as well, another, he was a freshman last year, didn't play much, I'm gonna remember it after I close this video, and I'm gonna really be kicking myself, but there's some young guys waiting in the wings, and that some young guys that are really talented, and that, like I said, the Panthers believe in them, but maybe just don't believe that they're ready for full time starting jobs yet, and maybe don't want to fill a third starting spot with, a rotation or a group of guys. So that's where Thompson comes in. I think. I feel like he's a real plug and play asset immediately. He was an all MAC linebacker last year. Just always has a nose for the ball, makes a ton of tackles. He's big, he's tall, he's got some length to him. Um, I think the notable thing was that he told us he is pretty certain he's a middle linebacker. So I'm sure they're going to try to get him to do some positional versatility things, play both on the outside as well, or at least practice on the outside as well, especially during spring ball and training camp. But I'd kind of expect a guy who's played middle linebacker for most of his career to stick there. And that just makes it interesting because as the Panthers try to fill holes with Bengali Kamara on his way out in the transfer portal going to South Carolina, and then Shane Simon off to look at the NFL draft. I just kind of wonder where all the pieces fit in. You've got Solomon DeShields and Brandon George coming back. George, who has explored some of that positional versatility stuff that really all Pitt linebackers kind of go through, but I think fits best as a middle linebacker, just because he's such a hard hitter. I think he's experienced and kind of knows the defense really well, can make calls from in there. Um, you just wonder what's going to give here. I think George is capable of playing the outside. I wonder what Keye Thompson looks like on the outside as well. I think you can pretty safely say that Solomon DeShields is going to be an outside linebacker again. He fit really well there last year, had the best season of his career. So I think that's one of the biggest things I'm looking for going into training camp, and then or going to spring ball, excuse me, and then of course into training camp is just how much they try to experiment with these guys, whether they think George is more of an outside linebacker, if they can move Thompson to the outside, if they want to keep him at the middle. So I think it's just a fascinating fit. I'm interested to see how they try to square these guys into the right positions, and mm, it's one of the biggest storylines in my mind going into training camp. Just how they try to fill some of these holes on the defensive line, especially at linebacker, especially as it relates to Thompson and his fit with this team as well. Because the Panthers have had a ton of success with transfer linebackers before, and we'll see if they can do it one more time with Thompson in there. That's all I've got for you all today. Appreciate you all tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. We'll be back later tonight with my main man, Jack Markowski. We'll be doing a post-game report after the Wake Forest basketball game. I'll be headed to the Pete in a little bit over an hour. But it should be a good game. Hope you all tune into that video. Appreciate you all tuning into this one. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to us all on YouTube. And follow our that's inside youtube.com, excuse me, /at Inside the Panthers, and make sure to follow all of our reporting at insidethepanthers.com. Like I said, appreciate you all tuning in, and I'll see you next time.